All right, I think I'm live. I'm just gonna wait to see if it flicks over here. And can't hear the audio. All right, I think I'm Yep, live. No, I am now officially live. Well, welcome to my first video on my new YouTube channel. So I used to do all my streams over on Twitch, but to be honest, I think the better place for this is actually on YouTube, simply because this is more of a place where people want to learn about tech rather than on Twitch, where, as I've watched the science and technology, or now the gaming category uh, kind of grow, it's not growing at any level that I find satisfactory. So I thought, why not come over here and do it on YouTube? Most people have accounts on YouTube anyway, so it just makes more sense. Anyway, what am I doing tonight? Well, what I've been working on, so I'll just give a little bit of a baseline of what I've been working on. But I've just been kind of learning NestJS, and I've been just taking different parts of what NestJS can do and just building different kind of applications, right? So, for example, I wanted to learn how you could do REST in NestJS. So I went and built myself an authorization server using the REST stuff, like using controllers and all that kind of thing. And then I went, okay, well, there's a GraphQL component to it. So the game engine itself, like most of the logic for the games that I'm writing, are on this GraphQL server. And then ultimately, when the game is running in real time, we want some real time responses. That's coming from this live server, which is also an NestJS app that's using WebSockets. So what I'm working on tonight is the actual subscription part. So this part here from Redis. So what happens is I make an authenticated mutation to this GraphQL server to say, uh, for the first game that I'm building, it's tic-tac-toe, right? So just say I take my turn, I send an authenticated request to the GraphQL server and saying I want to put an X in position, in the middle position, something like that. And obviously, I check to see if they're authorized to do so. They're not trying to manipulate the game in any way. All that logic is in here. And if we get a successful outcome in the sense of they're allowed to make that move, then I'm publishing uh, that move to Redis, and I'm using Redis's pub sub to basically propagate that information down into my live server, and then that's determining based on the type of message which sockets to send it down to the actual web application itself or the website. What I've gotten so far in terms of this communication is I'm in the process of registering and opening sockets. So I've been able to open a socket, but I need to register it so that when the subscribe phase comes in, I know which socket I need to talk to or which collection of sockets I need to talk to, and then send the message appropriately down to the client. So this is the bit I'm going to be working on first because I don't have any code that allows me to subscribe to the Redis system from a live server or from a WebSocket server. So that's what I'm doing tonight. I don't know how far I'm going to get. I'm only dedicating 2 hours to this, and I kind of have an idea of what I want to look for. I found a nice little article which I'm just about to pop up now that kind of explains it, but this is with Socket.io. So you got Socket.io, which is the default for NestJS. So NestJS has, you know, WebSocket support, but it does it using Socket.io out of the box. And so if you want to change it, which is what I've done, I changed it to be WebSockets. But now what I need to do is I'm using this as a baseline to just keep track of how I want to capture each socket that I bring in. Okay. Don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I've been working on this for a while now, so I've gone through a few trials and tribulations, like learning Mongoose to store profile data in a profile database, I had to learn a little bit about how GraphQL works with NestJS. I had to learn, how to secure data effectively into a MySQL database with salts and things of that nature. Stuff pretty standard stuff, but yeah, there's been a lot that I've done on this project already. What I don't have is this site. This site's still not built. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just using tools. So things like consoles to test things out, or Postman, or I've got the Redis Explorer if I need to look in the Redis, or if I need to look into Mongo, I've got the MongoDB Compass. So I've got this as well, and then I've got MySQL Workbench. So that's here's the profile DBs, or the user profiles. And then I've got the workbench for MySQL. So your database has just two tables. Where is it? Where is my table? I don't really know this very well. Anyway, there's two database tables in MySQL. There's one collection for storing just profile info, which has literally almost nothing in it. This is the username, because the username's unique. I might add more stuff later for a profile, but that's what I'm starting off with. And then I've got this, right? So I've been just using tools to get around. I've also been using Postman. So I'm using Postman to talk to the auth API. So what I normally do here is I log in. So I've got like a REST endpoint where I just log in, say Daryl Duck, and then, whoops, random 16, send, and it gives me an ID token. And then the ID token gets used in a few places. So it's a lot going on. But what I'm trying to track now, what I'm trying to do specifically in code, is work out exactly how I'm going to keep track of the sockets. So this is a WebSocket state service. I'm trying to work out how I want to capture each socket and how I can identify from which room I'm in, which game I'm in a room, or an individual user socket. I'm trying to map out how I'm going to keep track of all that stuff, as well as reverse engineer. If I get the room ID, then how do I work out what users are in that room and things of that nature, without hitting the database constantly. So this is what I've started to look at, was how do I manage sockets on my server. All right, I'm going to get started. So last time I looked at this, I said I wanted to keep track of WebSockets. I'm going to actually change the type to unique WebSocket, not WebSocket. Now, what's a unique WebSocket? Well, what this is just an interface I've created, which contains an ID on it. By default, WebSockets don't have identifiers. Socket.io does. And one of the things I need is a way to identify a socket when they disconnect. So the only way I could think to do it was to create an interface that sits on top of the built-in WebSocket interface. The built-in WebSocket interface is actually, why is this not? I haven't got the right WebSocket. That should be from WS. All right, yeah. So in order to keep track of it, I extended it and added an ID on it so that I can add an ID. So later on, I can delete things by ID. So that's why I put that bit in. But now what I'm trying to work out is, if I get a room ID, I need to be able to find out, okay, what sockets are in that room. So what I'm doing here is I'm keeping track of I believe I'm keeping track of the room ID that's associated to a socket ID. So each socket will only belong to one room, and each socket will only ever belong to one user. So it's a socket. It's a user it's per user per room, per user room, right? So the combination of a room and a username makes up a single socket connection. So that allows people to play multiple games in multiple rooms, um, and not have it affect what's going on. So now I'm just thinking, because I'm going to have a quick look. Got to remember the messages that I'm publishing over in my GraphQL server. So let's start off with, I think the first message is start game. So I think there's room, sorry. Room host, room join. Room join will be the first one, where I believe I'm publishing an event. Yeah, here we go. So we're publishing a user join event, and we've got the ID and the user that's joining. Now this doesn't tell you, who to talk to. So this is where I'm going to look at, okay, I got the room ID. All right, so from the room ID, I need to be able to look up sockets that are associated with that room ID. But at the same time, what I really just need is the ability to look up room state. So hang on, I'm just going to quickly map this out. A room can have multiple usernames. A username can belong to multiple rooms. Right? So that means they can be in multiple games, right? A socket can only belong to one username. And a socket can only belong to one room. But a room can have one or many sockets. And a username can have one or many sockets. But what I don't have is, for a room, so if I get given the room ID combined with a username, I need to tell the other user that about the event, which means I need to filter out room usernames. Don't know why I would ever keep. I know I do need that. Put that back. Room usernames is the first one I'm thinking of. Yeah. So therefore it would be look into room usernames and filter out the username and no, do this. Perform the following. Room usernames dot filter. Room username. Where are you? room usernames, room ID, filter is not equal to username. We const username to equals that, and then I just need to const socket equals username sockets. Hang on. No, that can't work. I'm just trying to think of the data structures that make sense here. I'm trying to think of the data structures. So hang on, let me think about this again. So if I put these two things together, right? Just keep the others out for a second. And then I say because the message definitely is. Sorry, I'm going to close some of these down. Still open. That shouldn't be open. Close that one down for a sec. Close that down as well. There's just room ID and username. It's the username of the one that's joined. So that's a pairing right there. A room has a username socket, or has multiple username sockets. So let's go back. Okay, so how about the room has a list of usernames of the room. It almost needs to be like a username socket element. And it has a username and then socket ID. So how about we try this? Export interface. And then, so I get given the room. Now I gotta, here. Yeah, so I got the room ID. I can look up what the username and the socket ID is. I can then filter where the object's username is not equal to the incoming username. That'll give me the user socket record. I can then get the socket ID and I can look up the socket. I can just look up socket state. So that's scenario one. Alright, so I'm gonna comment these out. We'll just comment out things that don't make sense. Okay. So we go this dot socket state dot set socket ID socket. Got it. Yeah. So then we remove from here socket state socket. Get rid of this console stuff. Now the second one, which is room username sockets. This will be room ID, and then it'll be username, and then socket ID, and then it'll be ID. But not username, I didn't know. Ah. Oops. Nobody's in to say anything yet? Fair enough. Hmm. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. So that now puts the username in there. Now if I do something like what I put up here, right? Let's see if this works. I should just console log this out. I think that will do. All right. So it's a little bit hard to understand what's going on here, but basically, I think what I've decided to do is that for each room, so say tic tac toe, for example, there's two users, right? So for each connection that gets made, I add a user to that room because whenever you talk to play in my world, everything's inside of a room, right? Even if you haven't started a game, you're inside a room. It's like a lobby, I guess is another way of looking at it. So as soon as I get open up a connection to this WebSocket server, I'm told what room I'm in, which is the room ID. I'm also told who I am, so my username. And then obviously when I connect, I get a connecting type socket, right? I then have to set an ID on it. At the moment, I'm just dumbing it out. So I'm setting a unique identifier here before I add it to my collection, and that's just for reference later. And then what I'm doing is I'm looking up, is there an existing room configuration inside the room user sockets? So say this is the host who's coming in for the first time, they're connecting, they will come here for the first time. This dot room user sockets dot get room ID will return undefined because it's not there, so I'll get an empty array. All right, and then I set on that socket at that room ID my own array where I spread probably an empty array at this point. Plus, I add one individual value, which is the new record of the connection, which is this user at this socket. So this room now has one connected socket where I can identify it by the username or by the socket ID. And then after that, I'm just saying, okay, I don't want to have multiple copies of sockets everywhere. I'm just going to set the socket into one dictionary or one map in this case, and just use the socket ID as a key. That's what I'm doing the line below it. And then what I'm doing here is just testing out the idea that if I've given a room ID and the username, that I can filter that out and only get the socket that isn't that username. So what should happen here is I should get an empty array when I do this for the first time when connecting. So what was I connected on? I was connected on this port. I'm just going to quickly, and it's just an empty screen that's going to come up because I haven't done any UI yet, as I said. So what should happen here is I should now get a message on my other node engine saying enter room called empty. Now, if I open up another socket connection by redoing this, it's still empty. Interesting. I didn't expect that. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because there's two in there. So finally, I'll go console.log, and I'll just look up this dot get like this. Then that should give me the array with two items in it. Not now because I haven't connected. But once I refresh the pages, so refresh, there's one. If I go and refresh the other page, or even if I refresh this page, it's probably going to put another one in there, I think. It does. And I'll deal with that in a minute. And this will give me a different, where is it? Yeah. Because it's the same user. So in theory, when I refresh the page, the socket should disconnect and I get a new socket. I get a new socket. All right. So if I come down and now say down here, and this is what I need to do on disconnect. I need to look at my socket ID and I need to work out what rooms that socket ID is associated to. So that's the reverse lookup. So that I can determine exactly what data I need to move, and then I need to go through that one, look for all the users, find the socket IDs, and delete them accordingly. So I just need to keep track of what room is associated to what socket ID. So that's where I need to come up here. I now need to have this socket room state, which is what I was looking at earlier. I now need to come down to here, and instead of having just this dot socket state, I need to set, when I pass the ID, I need to also set room ID. And down here, before I delete that record, I need to go const room ID equals this dot socket room state dot get socket dot ID. If there's a room ID, I now just need to go const socket IDs equals this dot room user sockets dot room user sockets dot get go room ID, or so this would be dot really or I can go or empty, and this would be socket usernames or username socket. What did I call it? Username sockets. And then I can go const socket IDs equals username sockets dot filter. Oh no, sorry. Dot map. There we go. User us dot socket ID. Cool. Then I go socket IDs dot for each No, here. If socket IDs is greater than 1, that's not socket IDs. Dot length is greater than 1. I.e., there's 2 people in there. Then I just need to remove the 1 entry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Just dot room. So that will remove that socket. Did that return? Oh, that only returns the ones that, yeah. That's fun. If that isn't the case, then we just need to go this dot room username sockets dot delete room ID. So that means there's only 1 left. I just need to remove the room entry altogether. And then, yeah, ultimately I need to delete that socket from there. So that's correct. So let's console.log this dot room username sockets. Oh, I also have to go delete from here too. This logic's not perfect, but it's a starting point, right? Let's try that. Okay. So I'm just gonna try one first. This is it here, so just refresh. It's a room called there. If I refresh it again, map. Yep, so it got disconnected and then I got a new one. So the disconnect happened first, which is good. Okay. I'm gonna add some code to probably connect with a different username in the client. Okay. I'm gonna clear out the rest for now. Like all the other stuff that I have here that isn't relevant anymore, probably. And I'm just going to, I'm even going to remove this. This is a little bit misleading. Okay, all right, so I need to come over to my live tester code. I'm just going to add something. Oh, that's the head. Why is the script tag in the head? Should never be in the head. Should be in the bottom of the body. Old school code there. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, most browsers these days load pretty quickly. So having your code at the top's fine, but if it's trying to target something that's in the body, it won't find it. That's the only problem with it being in the head. Unless you make it async, or you make it wait, right? Then it's different. I'm just going to throw a form tag in here. And then I'm going to add input. Type is, let's just say text. Doesn't really matter. Let's put the username in front of it. It's not to be pretty. All I want is a button here though. Give it an idea of submit. Oh, sorry. Submit form button. Doesn't matter what it says. Again, it's not about perfection here. Const equals document query selector. I like query selector. I don't know why. I just do. It just seems to be the thing I always churn out rather than get document by ID. Okay, so there we go. Submit form button dot add event listener. We're gonna do it on click, obviously, and they're gonna connect. And this is what I'm about to do is very terrible, but this doesn't really matter too much. Let has submitted equals false. If not has submitted, then we'll open up a connection. Otherwise, oh sorry, I'll put has submitted equal true down here. And now the username will be whatever's in the input. Username input equals document query selector. I put an ID on it. I don't think I did. Let's go and add that very quick. ID equals username. Done. Done. It's a mess. The code's a mess, but I don't care. This is just dummy. Anyway. Do that. Cool. That shouldn't have hit the server at all. It didn't. Cool. So now I'm going to put barrel duck here and submit. Ah, it didn't do it properly. I think it's because I didn't put type equal to button here. So it's treating it like a submit, I think. Yeah, it's better. All right, refresh. Yeah, wait, look, username, blah, blah, blah. So let's just use good names. Right. There's our two. So now if I refresh one of them, so the one Daryl that two, I refresh. That shouldn't have happened. So it should have kept one of them. So at this point, it's correct. So if I connect, they both got the same. They both got the same socket ID. That's the problem. Whereas I am filtering out where it's. Yeah, so the socket ID also needs to be unique, which the socket ID is set here. So, what's the time? It's 8:52, so I got plenty of time. What I might do is I might install UUID, and I'll use the V4 version of UUID to trigger what? Anyway, V4 from UUID. What's going on here? Oh, it wants the types as well. Okay, npm add types slash UUID. Cool. That shouldn't happen again. So now if I run this again, okay. Let's just refresh both these. So we'll go Daryl Duck here. Cool. So there it is, socket ID looks like that. And now we'll add in the second person. Daryl Duck 2. Cool. Alright, so now they've got different socket IDs. So what should happen is now if I refresh this one, it should disconnect and I still have one remaining. There it is. I'm not sure why it's coming out looking like that. Well, it's got FL blah blah blah, but like, what is this? Oh, that's the room ID. That's the room ID. Yeah, still there. So sockets that, socket state one. It kept the Daryl Duck socket, that's good. And then the last thing is it kept track of the room, didn't it? Yeah. Alright, it looks like that's working. So we might be okay for our first scenario in terms of what we needed to register. Get rid of some of this stuff. Very, very complicated stuff. That's good. It's just because they don't have IDs, and there's no room concept of a room in standard WebSockets. There is in Socket.io, but not in WebSockets. And this is my first attempt. Like, eventually, I'll probably clean up this code and kind of use a similar interface where I can say join room ID, right? And it just knows how to broadcast. But for now, this is what I'm going to be using. Just to add room socket and remove socket. And that really should just say add socket. It's always going to be specific to a room. So if I look at the gateway, yeah. There we go. All right. So we'll handle disconnect. I'm probably going to have to move that around. I might create. There's a core. Well, I want to set up a game connections. Oh, that's the other thing I didn't do. I didn't create a module properly here, did I? I stuck the WebSocket state service here. I don't want to do that. I want to move that because that's in storage. But in order to move it, I have to create a module here at this level. And I'll just go sockets module.module.ts. I'll just grab this one quick. Oops. Okay. This is a global module. Cool. And this will contain WebSocket state service, not the room entry gateway. Cool. Now it's still going to complain because I haven't inserted this into the main app module yet, but I will right now. It'll be just import that from /storage sockets. And that's not going to work because that's not in the index file. It needs to be now. Done. Come on. Oh, what? But I made it global. Why is it still complaining? Oh, I didn't export it. That should be fine. There we go. That is why good old Angular modules in Nest, eh? Gotta export those providers, or they just don't work. Alright, so what am I doing now? What am I doing? Let's do a few more tests. So I'm going to add more logic to this. So I'm going to actually add a room. So input ID equals room ID. So I can put in what I want for that. Just put room ID. Cool. So what I did, I probably took it out too soon. I'm just going to go state after adding socket. Three. Oh, I'm getting better at NestJS. I'm not perfect yet. The reason why I'm learning NestJS, if for anyone who actually knows me, who might come and watch this stream at some point, I'm actually technically got a long career in .NET, right? But what you'll see is on my channel and even my Lyric Digital channel, I never really talk about .NET because to me it was always something I did, and it wasn't necessarily something I was overly passionate about. Like .NET for me is I've done it for so long, I'm bored of it, so I never wanted to teach it. But now I'm going into a job where I'm going to be doing JavaScript every day and TypeScript and Node and things of that nature, NestJS. So I thought I've always been more passionate about those things. So I thought, okay, cool. I'll start doing online streams in the tech stack that I'll be using at work. So, and my new job. Anyway, I'm going to grab these at the very bottom. After removing socket. Okay, so let's just add a new socket. So I'm just going to refresh. So I'm going to put room ID 1, username Daryl Duck. Bang. So let's have a look. This is after. So there it is. Socket ID is that. There's my name. There's the ID of the room, right? Cool. Let's go to the next tab. Refresh this. I'm going to put it in 2 and go Daryl Duck. So now I'm in 2 separate rooms. All right, so now I'm going to do that. And now I can see that. Where's so many sockets, man? Okay, so now I can see there's room 1, room 2, and I'm in both, and my socket IDs are different. Beautiful. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right. Now I'm going to go and add another tab. And I'm going to add to room 1, Daryl Duck 2. So Daryl Duck 2. So if I scroll down, there's sockets. I'm not too worried about sockets. It's a little hard to see. It's more my initial configuration I'm really looking at. Yep, so now Daryl Duck 2 is there twice. Now, the one thing I want to rule out is duplicates. So if I now come in and I don't want more than 2 either. So if I come in and I do the same thing again, in room 1, I should be able to put Daryl Duck 2 in again. But I bet you I do. Yeah, see, that's the problem. So there should only ever be 2, um, the ability to do 2 of them. So, how I'm going to manage that is I'm going to have this return a boolean, right? And by default, if it gets to the very end, it'll just return true. No harm done there. But I need to do some extra checks in here, right? So I need to ensure that that username isn't already in that list before I set the new username, right? So if I go if room username sockets dot filter, I'll just actually const existing username record equals this dot sorry, it equals room username sockets. Or actually, another, before I even go that far, if the length is already greater than 1, right? That means I've got 2 or more already in there. I should be returning false. Right? We can't add another person to. We can't enter the same room. Now I don't know if I should return boolean or I should return some kind of an error that indicates why, but at this stage I'm just going to return a boolean. And now I can go const existing username equals username socket. No, just existing username record equals room usernames sockets dot find, and the predicate will be username socket username equals username. Why did I do that? If there is an existing record, right, then return false. Now, when I go to add socket, because I'm pretty sure that should be the first thing in the gate entry. There it is, right? So const is successful. If not is successful, then we're going to return. What do you do when you get a fail? Is it new WS error? Okay, I need to find out what return type is supposed to return there. Because by right, that should return there. It should never get down to here. There's a few more checks I need to do in here too. I just realized. They probably need to happen before I even do this call. There's a bunch of validation. I have to check if room ID and username is correct. Check if the room actually exists in Redis. Do I want to go that far? Probably should. On the connection, I should. Check that the profile actually exists and matches the username. Yeah. So the profile is assigned to a room. If not, reject. So all those checks will be made. If not, reject. Check if the profiles are already in the room. If they are, then reject. Yeah. Okay. So this is more of a sanity thing from this local code. But how you return a WS error? So WS response error nest.js. So let's do that. Oop, wasn't meant to be like that. So it says that, but what if you want to return an error? Let's have a look. It might be under here. Come on. That's um. It's not in here, is it? I believe I've got it in my other GitHub repo. Sudoku. It might be in here. Look at I think I just typed T actually. Yeah. I don't know, it's upon a file. Let's just look at game hosting go 8%. Look at all this code I wrote. Probably not there. Oh, throwing WS exceptions. Okay. That must be what I need then. What's it coming from? Yep, WS exceptions. Okay. So I can, instead of doing this, I just go throw new WS exception. Cannot register socket at this time. I'm just going to do that for the moment because I'm not too sure exactly what I want to write there. Okay. All right, let's try this again. So start from scratch. So let's refresh all 4 windows. I'm gonna try and put them all in room 1. So I'm gonna 1, Daryl Duck, submit, and I should get 1 user. Yep. We'll go to the next person. 2, Daryl Duck 2. Cool. So put him in another room. There they are. So Daryl Duck 2 can go in the room 1 as well. All right. Yep, there it is, right? Now let's try and add Daryl Duck 2 to room 2 again. In this one. Oh, don't tell me I lost some connections. I think I might have lost some connections. Ah, I'll refresh them all. So we go back to the start. I made a mistake. So now it should all be empty. Yep, see, 3 empty maps, that's good. So the emptying of the sockets, or the state for the sockets are good. 1, Daryl Duck. Yep. I might not, actually, before I go too far, I might get rid of that second one. Just too much going on there. Okay. Refresh all these again. All right. 1, Daryl Duck. Submit. Cool. 1, Daryl Duck 2. Beautiful. 1, Daryl Duck 3. This should throw an exception. Submit. I don't know why it said enter room called again, but stop opening that one. I was expecting a connection failure. It actually didn't fail. Well, actually, it didn't return any error to the client. It's acting as if the connection was established. Weird. And then the last one. Oops. Ah. Ah. Submit. All right. It's kept all the ones I want. So now if I refresh the one that says Daryl Duck 2 and yeah, this one here. Alright, so now I'm just in two rooms. So the connectivity is working. The dictionaries and the maps and everything that I've got, pretty sure the logic is correct. It took a little bit more work, but we're there, I think. I may refactor in the future, but for now, I'm going to do that. I'm going to just clean up though and add these interfaces into a models folder. So I can get it out of that main folder there. Unique socket. What am I doing? Close that for a second. Should I just realize? No, it doesn't matter. What was I doing? What was I doing? I'm grabbing this. That's what I'm doing. Okay. Okie dokie, right there. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh my god. Already. There we go. Cool. I'm gonna add. Where's the WebSocket on? Where's my WebSocket documentation? Where is it? There it is. There it is. Socket.add event lister. let's I'll leave that there for now. So now I can look up how to do this Redis side. So we're going to create an adapter now. Before I go too far, I'm going to go up a step just to, because I haven't done any of this. First of all, I'm pretty sure I've got, actually, I'll check in what I've done. Have I done Redis? No, just platform WS. Moved code over to WS library and added state management for managing sockets. Okay. Well, you know what? I think that's a good place to actually finish. So what I was going to do was I was going to start looking at the Redis side, which was this. But really, all I really got involved on was this. So register and opening sockets. So registering them in terms of keeping some management and opening them up. And then we just tested a few things based on some business logic. So I'm happy with this bit. I think maybe tomorrow I will focus on this. Whether I do that on stream is another thing. Tomorrow's Friday, right? Or Friday in Australia anyway. So yeah, I think I'll focus on this tomorrow, get this up and running. And then I need to translate the messages that come off this into, sorry, I need to look at who the message is for coming off of here, and then find out which sockets I'm supposed to communicate down, and then communicate them down the sockets. That's what I need to do next. But first, I'll start here. So we'll actually be listening for messages off PubSub, and then we'll focus on the translation part to get it down into the client. Cool. All right. I'm going to jump off, guys. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.